Welcome to the next part of designing your first pitch deck. I'm Jenna and I'm super excited to be on this journey with you. And now it's finally time to dive into the content of your pitch. So far, we've looked at the different types of pitches that you might find yourself doing along your entrepreneurial journey. We then looked into developing your story. And don't forget the work that you've done on that previous part of the course, because that's going to really help here. So we're looking at your pitch building blocks. And actually, the next three parts of the course are all about developing the different building blocks of your pitch. I've broken them down into nice, easy chunks so we can really take our time with developing the content of your pitch. So here we go. Let's dive in. The four areas that we're going to be focusing on and the four blocks we're focusing on for now are your cover slide, and linked to this is your value proposition. We've got some activities coming up on that. We're then going to dive into the problem that you're solving, your solution, and also your market. As with the whole course, you can pause this at any time so you can really work through the different blocks of your pitch and develop them as we go, or watch the whole thing through and you'll see some actions at the end of the course so that you can make sure you're putting this all into practice and really coming up with this first and final pitch deck that you can work from along your journey. So let's dive into this first slide, and we're thinking about the cover slide. Now, it sounds really obvious that you're going to have a cover slide for your business, but it's surprising how many people leave this out. Now, it doesn't have to go into loads of detail, but you can get quite creative with how it looks. I've kept the example here really short and simple, but make sure you've got the name of your business on your cover slide. Make sure that you've got some sort of one-line statement that sets the tone, that we understand where you're operating in, what type of business that it is. And this is going to be linked to your value proposition statement we're coming on to shortly. And then finally, ideally have a logo. And I'll be coming onto this later in the course, but thinking about the branding and the look of your pitch deck, that will come later. Don't worry too much about that in this part of the course. It's just about the content, but really thinking about the name of your business, a one-line statement that sets the tone, and your logo. Those are the key things and the key elements to have on that cover slide. Now, I've mentioned the term there, value proposition. This might be a term that you're familiar with, that you've come across. It might be completely new if you're really early stage in your journey. So I'm going to dive into this and developing this one-liner that might help you to describe your business in a really compelling way. So your value proposition statement could look something like this. This is an example. I or we help who do what by doing what. This is sort of using letters of the alphabet so that you can fill in the blanks for what that X, Y, Z is. Another way to flip that, we provide X for Y so that they can do Z. We work with who to help them do what by providing what. So you can start to fill in the blanks here, but we're going to carry on in a bit more detail on this value propositions piece to start to bring this to life. But this is what you're aiming for. And this is quite a nice place to get started with, especially for that first pitch deck. Now, what I should caveat at this point in the course is that this first pitch deck is going to be a great starting point for you as you begin this journey with your business and you start to elaborate and develop your pitch as you go along. So your pitch is going to change over time, but the purpose for this course is to get this first pitch up and running that you can then draw from and work from as you progress. So your value proposition statement might change as you work through your business, but for now, get really clear on what it is your business does, who it's for, and how you do it. So there's three elements to think about as you're building this value proposition statement, and it's all to do with your customer. And again, this is a nice activity that you could pause and do in your own time or come back to in the action section at the end of this part of the course. So thinking about what jobs or tasks do your customers try to get done? And it might be on a daily basis, it might be a weekly basis, it might be quite rare. But what is it, the jobs or tasks that your customer is trying to get done to do with your business? Because you could go on a complete tangent here and write everything that your customer is trying to get done, but keep it relevant to the business that you're operating in and that you're starting. What are they trying to get done in their lives? That's the first part of that activity. Then think about the pains that they experience to do with these jobs as well. So what are those pain points that they're experiencing? Is it that it's really time consuming? Is it that something's really boring? It's really tedious? Is it that something's just painful to do and to complete? So you're linking this. So the tasks, jobs you've covered, what are they trying to get done? What are their pain points, especially around those tasks that they're trying to do? And then finally, the third piece are the gains. What are they trying to gain? So you're kind of flipping the pains on their head here. What is it they're trying to gain from these tasks or these jobs? Is that they're trying to get more time back? Is that they want things to be easier, simpler, more simple and smooth to do? What is it that that might look like? So what are their pains and what are their gains? Because that helps you really create this picture of really thinking, we help who do what's the task, so that they can save more time, save money, get more time back to do the things that they love, to be able to feel more confident to do this particular task. There's so many options that you've got, and I've kept it as generic as possible so that you can fill in those blanks depending on the business or industry that you're operating in. So that's a start of a 10 for your value proposition statement. Try to get to that XYZ blanks being filled, and that will help with your cover slide to set the tone for your pitch deck. And we're ready to then move on to the next building blocks of your pitch. Now, before we dive into these next slides, really take on board and keep in mind that there's no real right or wrong order for your pitch. So the building blocks I take you through, the order that I take you through them in, isn't necessarily the order that you have to stick to. This is just so I can give you the information and the building blocks that we'd normally expect to see in a pitch deck, and it's going to help you develop this comprehensive slide deck that you can then work from moving forward. Now, while I say that, the problem and solution that we kick off with is often a good starting point. It doesn't have to be. You might find a different angle to start on. You might practice with other people, and you might find there's other ways to kick off. But fundamentally, especially in the early stages, problem and solutions are a great place to start once you've got that cover slide out of the way. This is often where you dive into your pitch as well. You might have your cover slide, but you might not necessarily say anything when you're pitching to that. That could be on the screen when you stand up in front of the people that you're pitching to. It might be on the screen when you're introduced. Then you might go straight into the problem. So you can start really strong. So I'm going to give you some different ideas and tips in terms of presenting your slides as we go through without overwhelming you too much. But that's just a first tip, that you might go straight into the problem slide. So here we go. Let's give an example of what that problem slide might look like. And again, really reiterating that there's no right or wrong here. The examples I give you are just that. They're examples to bring it to life, to show you what it might look like, but it could be very different when you start to build out your own problem slide. So the example that we've got here, so I'm showing the example of a file sharing software that allows you to share large files. This is the example that I'm using for this particular part of the course. So the problem that I've put on here are two really short and simple statements. Email is outdated, yet it's still the top choice for file sharing. Now, bear in mind, this is a very hypothetical business. It doesn't exist. I might have based it on other things, but this is just to give you a flavor and an idea of what a problem slide might look like. What we've then done is broken this down into three key areas of the problem. So one, large files can't be shared easily. Fact, not via email anyway. Quality of files reduces by X% when sent via email. So I might do some research and have a little look at the statistics behind that. And then finally, no option exists to support file sharing via email. Again, this is all very hypothetical, but you can see that I've made it really clear on the slide what the problem is. I've given you three key parts to the problem. Email's outdated, still the top choice, something needs to change. So if we think about that storytelling piece from the course, the part of the course previous to this, it really is trying to think about the industry story. So if I was sending this to someone, they might not need me here to explain the problem. But if I was here, I might go into a bit more detail about this particular industry and why it's outdated, why it's not fit for purpose. So you can see here, I'm trying to really marry up the parts of the course so you can see how it all fits together. The problem for you might be very different. You might bring in your user story here, bring a character to life, whatever it is that's going to really resonate with you to make as much impact as possible right at the start of your pitch. So let's move on to the next building block, which is your solution slide. More often than not, these come hand in hand. You present the problem, then you might follow up with the solution, because what you've done here is almost opened up a puzzle piece. I like using that analogy. You've got this puzzle piece, which is the problem, and you make us realize, wow, that really is a problem. Now I want to find out what the solution is. So you're sort of connecting those puzzle pieces together. It might be that you elaborate on the problem a little bit more. You might go into the market that's coming up later. You might go into more details to bring that problem to life. And hopefully you're seeing here, there's no real right or wrong, but for the purposes of developing your first pitch deck, feel free to follow on in the order that I'm doing to really be able to get this first one up and running. So what did I have on the solution slide to follow on from that problem slide? I kept the similar format. The rule of 3 is quite nice because it's memorable, and I linked that to what I did in the previous slide for the problem. So the solution here is seamless sharing for old school emails. A little bit of alliteration there, try to be quite attractive. And then I've got 3 key things to highlight what this solution would look like. I'm telling you that it's a quick and easy add-on function. The original file quality is maintained, and there's no need for extra apps or extra things to download. It's really nice and simple. So what I've done is linked the solution pieces here to what I highlighted in the problem. So I'm really trying to build this narrative and get this flowed for the audience to really stay with me on the journey. And I'm really trying to make it make sense for them. Now let's go to the final building block for this section of the course, which is your market slide. Now, the market slide is really important, especially if you're presenting your pitch to potential investors, advisors. They're often going to want to know that, one, what market are you operating in and what's the potential, but also that you know the market you're operating in. You've done your research and they trust that you've got that knowledge and understanding. Now, there's a couple of different parts to the market because we want to know who you target as well. So your market slide might make it really clear who you're targeting, so who your target market is. But on the flip side of that, and the important piece, is the size of the market. So what are we talking about in terms of the potential reach for your business? What are the sales that you could do? What are the customers you could reach? What's the potential? That's what's really key, because you might have already given us an insight into the target market, who you're targeting earlier on in the problem or solution. So just bear that in mind. There are some different ways to approach your market slide. So as an example here, and just to give you some high-level overviews of what this could look like, on a market slide, you might typically see 3 key statistics. And these relate to sort of starting big with your total addressable market, your TAM, which is really the wider whole market that you're operating in. So if we take here an example of Airbnb, we all know Airbnb. They presented on their slide, the total available market was the number of trips that were booked worldwide. That's the market they're operating in. Total number of trips, big market. They then funneled that down into the market that they were going to serve. So that then related for Airbnb was for budget trips. They started with the trips were booked worldwide. They went into a niche segment or a particular segment, which was budget trips. They then went into their actual market share. What was the market that they felt they could obtain? So their serviceable, obtainable market. I don't want to go into too much jargon at this stage, but what's the market that they felt they could get from those budget trips? And what they did would highlight what their market share was. Sometimes you see this as a percentage. So we aim to target X% of this. So the budget trips that they take, it might be that you come at it with a slightly different angle. But what this does is tells the viewer, the audience, that you understand the market you're operating in. You're showing the potential of the market you're operating in and also where you're starting, so that you can see this bigger market here, but you've funneled it down into the specific type and area of that market that you're going after. So don't get too overwhelmed with this. The market slide, if you're thinking, my goodness, I don't know where to start with this, the market slide is often one that proves a little bit of a challenge. But start to do your research, really give some thought to what market, what industry you're operating in, and how could you present the potential for your business. It's food for thought. to think about before we move on to the next part of the building blocks. For now, we're focused on your cover slide with your value proposition statement, the problem, the solution, and your market. I'm now going to go on to the building blocks 2 coming up in the next part of the course. I'll see you there.